effective praise. We use praise often in our classroom. We start out with some general verbal praise. This is probably the most common type of praise. This is what I find myself sometimes getting in this rut of just saying good job, awesome, that kind of praise. Our next one is more specific praise, where we talk about, we give that general praise statement, but then we link that with both the appropriate behavior and the skill that we saw. That was awesome. Thank you for following directions. When you quickly got on the computer, you showed me you were following directions. Something like that. And then the last one is effective praise, and this is what they would like us to do to reinforce these skills that Heather just talked about. For example, following directions. And so we would have that general praise statement. Then we would have a description of the appropriate behavior. It really follows a similar format as the teaching does. So we'd have a description of the appropriate behavior. We'd label, the steps of that skill, and then, in our presentation, they talk about it's optional to have a consequence, but there's a consequence, a positive consequence that you could then give them for following that direction. What stops us as teachers, do you think, from getting past the general verbal praise to more specific praise?
Time.
Go ahead. Does someone have one? Stephanie, you said?
Time.
Time is one of them, but
Time.
with high school, when we give specific praise like that, sometimes it's construed as demeaning.
I could see that. Okay, good, thank you. Other reasons why we might not get down to more effective or specific praise?
I think it's the wording. I think
Wording.
sometimes you just don't come up with the wording to say right then.
Yeah. No, I could see
Or it
that.
goes on too long, so you need something short, and if you have a vocabulary, I think we don't have it necessarily vocabulary to make it short and effective.
I think that's why it's good when you attach to one of these skills, because if you're used to using these skills and you're like, nice job accepting feedback or whatever it is, and then,
That's a perfect point. Could we actually get to effective praise if we haven't taught a skill? It'd be pretty tough, wouldn't it? Because what would the details of the skill be? Maybe each one would have their own. Each kid might have their own reasoning. But in order to get to very specific praise, we have to teach skill. And I think that's what we realized when we were at the presentation. We have to do the teaching in order to effectively reinforce those social skills. So that was kind of an aha moment that we came up with. So kind of the why, we know lots of these. When we provide effective praise, it's reinforcing. It increases the likelihood that they can generalize whatever that behavior is. In the junior high, we have some struggles when we send kids back to their own junior highs. Can they generalize what we did here? And sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. We build positive adult and youth relationships. Our classrooms, our settings could be positive. Sometimes they feel a little negative. We have so much behavior and so much correcting going on. And then, like we've all learned, that we need to have that minimum ratio of 4-to-1, positive to negative. Now, they talked about how effective praise shouldn't be overdone. We don't want you to think that every single behavior that happens that you're doing, this total effective praise. We'll have a variety of those. But if we break it down, there's going to be certain situations in which you're going to want to use effective praise. When you're reinforcing a weak skill, when you're teaching a new skill, or when you've taught them a lesson, maybe how to line up before we go to lunch, then you're reinforcing, or that preventative teaching, that you would use very specific, effective praise. Would it be overwhelming to think about doing effective praise with everything that you do? I think it would. I started to think through that, and I started to say, wow, this would be a lot. To stop your class, Amy, thank you for following directions. When you look at me and you follow directions, imagine if everyone. But you're going to have kids that you might need to even do more praise, very effective praise, than others. And we all know that. We see that in different students. So here's the steps that we want to follow. So you're going to start with just a basic praise statement, one that you already use. And there's tons of these, so we should try and have a variety. But good job, couldn't have done it better myself, excellent. We want it to be brief. Our next one, we're going to describe the appropriate behavior, okay? Label the skills, okay? These could be, you just follow the instructions by looking at me and saying, okay. I found as I was going through this, I had to practice with my wife, and it was kind of funny. I started to call her Veronica instead of Jamie just because it felt more real, maybe. But she came up with the Veronica. I don't know where that came from. But as I was practicing, I realized that it has to be something that I do every day in my classroom. I can't come up with an effective praise for maybe what Nicole does for math. I have to think about, well, in reading, what are the routines that I constantly asking kids to follow directions? So as we practice, keep that in mind. Don't try and come up with something off the top of your head. Think about, what do I do every day, and how can I set that up for what I do? It might flow a little easier. So, like with teaching, we want a rationale. We want kids to understand the cause and effect of why they should do this behavior. This also caused me to think a little bit. You know, at the end they say, well, if you're when you follow directions, it helps you get things done faster, giving you more time to do what you want. Well, I thought, that sounds really good. But at the end of my class, do they have time to do what they want? I don't have that set up in my classroom. So we have to think as a team, when we reinforce, can we offer them things that are motivating to them so that our rationale makes sense? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
I mean, can you guys think of other rationale that might work, maybe for your own age group? I know we're elementary, junior high, high school, post-high. What are some other rationale that you might be able to use besides this idea of if we work more efficiently together, then you can have free time on the back end?
If you hurry to get this work done now, then we can go ahead and do our popcorn first. We will have time for the popcorn part.
Okay, yeah, so some kind of reward.
You get your point.
Good, you get your points. And so for some, that's really reinforcing, right? That tracking sheet is part of their new world.
So in our program, our students are working to get to the green group, which is an independent job site group, and so we can just tell them, follow directions, get to one on your evaluation, which will get you to the green group.
That's perfect.
And preschool kids that are transitioning to kindergarten or prepping them, so you follow directions. That's what the big kids do in kindergarten. You're getting ready for kindergarten.
Good. So it looks like each of the different programs, different age groups has this ultimate transition or this ultimate goal. Well, we need to tie our reinforcement to either one of those tools that helps them get to that point, or a skill or reward, whatever that may be, but it takes a little thinking. We can't just offer whatever, no, that sounds good to students, but at the end, oh, we ran out of time, so you don't get free time in my class. So you have to think on that as a team and figure out how this should apply to you. And this is our last one, which I mentioned could be optional. We don't want to give positives for everything. But again, if effective praise is used after we teach a new skill, or a skill that someone's weak in, or after as part of reteaching, then we may need to offer a positive because that's reinforcing to them. Again, we're going to label the skill and the behavior, and then, for example, there's 1,000 points. Ours would be something like on your tracking sheet, you'll get a 25, or that 5 points for following directions. It could be different. In my class, we use tickets sometimes and do a drawing at the end of class. So because you follow directions, I'll give you an extra ticket for the drawing at the end. So this again is up to you and your own hierarchy of positives, consequences in your class, and you'll pick the best one for that student. So that's the end. Those are the 5 steps of effective praise. So it might look something like this. Thank you, Kurt, for following directions. When I told the class that I needed you to get up and get started on your computer time, you looked at me and said, okay, and got up quickly and began on the computer. When you do that, that shows me that you're following directions. And because you did that, oh, my rationale's not good. Because you did that, you'll get an extra ticket. That's my consequence. Let me back up first. Because you did that, because you followed directions, you'll have more time at the end of class to do what you want. But again, you got to go back to that consequence. So because you did that, you can have an extra ticket for our drawing at the end of class. So something like that, and it takes practice to pull that off because there's so many steps. And so I would encourage us now, well, should we walk through the handout? Should we do it that way?
Well, the top of the handout's basically what you did.
So do you want to write it? Would it help to write it? Would you like to talk about it and just practice with someone from your team? How about you pick? You can write it if you like with a partner, or if you want to just talk through one. Pick a scenario in your classroom and try and do it. I found that if I practiced a lot, I got better and better. So go ahead, take a few minutes, and then maybe some of you will share.
I noticed that Janet does is when they do a police, and she pairs a consequence, which is like teaching, and she's like, that's the part of teaching, I guess. But, yeah, on the flip side. So it's built into.
But it's even this, like when you're giving effective praise, if like, well, Cindy was talking out all the time, and then she does it perfectly, and I'm over there, and Honor does it, it's, you know, nice job getting my attention. You look, you raise your hand, you waited, you know, you get, and then, yeah, exactly. I go through the steps, exactly what she did right, and then I said, when you get my attention appropriately, or like you have me answer your questions, so your turn comes, and then I give her a positive.
Well, I practiced Jay.
Now she's Jay's getting up.
Hey.
But it'll be different.
Right. Yeah, some can hear all of that because it's too much.
That's what I'm trying to, I'm not used, even the specific praise I feel like I'm not as good at as a general, and then I don't think I've done the rationale that much. It's all the time. So how does that
When you cross it, if you say, okay, he knows what's happening there, let's just go back. You can
I don't even say that, I just let them display the behavior, then I reinforce the behavior they've chosen to display. And sometimes I'll say if then, but what I'll do depending on my candidate in a situation, like if they can keep their cool for only 15 seconds, then I'll make 20. And I'll say, thanks for accepting, no, you know what, take a pause.
My hand is like shaking.
But do you tie it to the?
I had to put it down for a
back, like you do in this?
It's hard because, see, praise is only one part of reinforcement, so like there's all kinds of other things. Yeah, I would say, no, thank you, so be approval. Thanks for accepting, no, you accepted, no. Because you accepted, no, I'm gonna let you have it.
But the reason is why they should have.
Show me the stuff you did.
Sure, you allowed me to finish teaching.
So their positive consequences has become, according to this.
There's other
Yeah.